So where is Muammar Gaddafi? Well, there have been unconfirmed reports that 2 South African Air Force planes were spotted at Tripoli airport, possibly to take him there, although a spokesman for the rebels has said that's unlikely as the airport is now under rebel control. Earlier, I spoke to our correspondent in Johannesburg, Nicholas Koch. I asked him how plausible it is that Gaddafi could end up in South Africa.
It's certainly a possibility. I would say personally a remote possibility, but I think it is a possibility because of the strong connections between South Africa's African National Congress, Nelson Mandela's movement, and the Libyan government of Muammar Gaddafi. Before the defeat of the apartheid system, Libya was an important supporter of the ANC, both financially and to a degree militarily. President Mandela, former President Mandela, when he did a tour of his allies, if you like, after his release from prison in May 1990, he went to Tripoli to thank Colonel Gaddafi and to say that in his view they were comrades in arms. Now that was 21 years ago. The world has moved on, but at least from an historical perspective, it is not impossible that the ANC would give Colonel Gaddafi sanctuary here, perhaps for a short period. But I do think it's unlikely for various reasons.
Nicholas Koch there in Johannesburg. Now, Libya is slipping from the grasp of a tyrant. The words of the US President Barack Obama. In a written statement from where he's on holiday, he said Gaddafi needs to acknowledge the reality that he no longer controls Libya. He needs to relinquish power once and for all. He went on to say that this acknowledgement would be the surest way to end the bloodshed. Well, assuming it is all but over, it's been a conflict which has lasted 6 months. Only a month ago, it still looked like it could drag on for many more. But suddenly, the tide appeared to turn.
January, Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi condemned civilian uprisings in neighbouring Egypt and Tunisia. But he wasn't to know the revolutionary sentiment would spread across to his own soil. Riots broke out in Benghazi on February the 15th after the arrest of a human rights activist. Momentum gathered in other major cities. Protesters met the full force of Gaddafi's troops. The regime leader made it clear he would not back down.
Why would I leave? Who would take my place? I don't have the authority to do that. I am not a president or a head of government. I am from the people.
In March, France became the first country to recognise the rebel group, the National Transitional Council, as Libya's legitimate governing body. Later that month, NATO began its first airstrikes in Benghazi under a UN Security Council resolution to protect civilians.
We are intervening in Libya on the advice of the United Nations Security Council. We are doing it to protect the civilian population from the mad and murderous regime which has killed its own people and has lost all legitimacy.
But NATO has regularly been accused of killing civilians in its strikes. In late June, the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Gaddafi under charges of committing crimes against humanity, but the regime leader clung to power. The murder in late July of Gaddafi's former Interior Minister Abdel Fattah Yunus, who defected to the rebels in February, cast a shadow over the Transitional Council's unity. The rebels have progressed in Benghazi and Misrata, but they're still battling to take the petrol city of Briga and Zlatan near Tripoli. After 41 years in power, Gaddafi still has his territory firmly marked in the capital. But the costly and deadly effort to oust him continues.
So who are the people who've been pursuing Gaddafi's forces for the past 6 months? And are they really the ragtag bunch of untrained civilians they've been made out to be? Let's have a look now at how the insurgents have turned the tide in the war against Gaddafi's army.
They've been described as poorly trained and under-equipped ragtag fighters with little discipline or leadership. Yet they were united against one man, Muammar Gaddafi. In late February, insurgents wrestled control of Benghazi from pro-Gaddafi forces and slowly started capturing other key eastern cities. Advanced heavy weapons were in short supply and, above all, Most rebel fighters were young, with no combat experience. This man was a pizza maker before becoming a trainer. In Misrata, lawyers, doctors and students took up arms to defend against Gaddafi's attacks.
I came here to join the fight because Gaddafi has attacked my family, and there are other Libyan families here.
Gaddafi forces tried to attack us with tanks.
Forces loyal to the strongman were far better equipped. The rebels sometimes had to fight back with primitive weapons, like this man here, using a simple mirror to find enemy troops.
I don't see anything, there is no one there.
But they must be there. They're firing at us from over there.
Still, the insurgents made progress, slowly, road by road, house by house. Misrata was the only western city under rebel control. It became the stage for urban guerrilla warfare. Each attack was met with a counterattack. The turning point was the start of NATO airstrikes. Every time Western forces bombarded a regime target, there was mass celebration, like here in Benghazi. At the same time, the opposition started preparing for post-Gaddafi Libya, setting up the National Transitional Council. About 30 countries, including France, recognized it as the legitimate Libyan representative. In the last few weeks, the rebel forces gained momentum as they closed in on Tripoli, feeling certain victory was close at hand after 6 months of battle.
One other story to bring you this half hour, and the former IMF chief, Dominique Strauss-Kahn, could be freed this week as prosecutors reportedly prepare to dismiss the explosive charges that the once powerful French politician tried to rape a hotel maid. Sources say the Manhattan District Attorney, Cyrus Vance, has concluded that the sexual assault charges cannot be proven beyond a reasonable doubt.
A legal saga full of surprises could come to an end in the coming days. The New York Post reports that the Manhattan District Attorney will ask a judge to dismiss all of the charges facing Dominique Strauss-Kahn on Tuesday. The report follows statements made over the weekend by the lawyer for the woman who accused Strauss-Kahn of sexual assault. He said the DA wrote a letter inviting his client to a meeting, which they simply wouldn't do, he said, if the case were to proceed as planned.
My interpretation of that letter is that they're going to announce that they're dismissing the case entirely, or some of the charges.
Prosecutors called the meeting with Diallo the day before the former head of the International Monetary Fund is scheduled to appear in court. The New York Post reports that prosecutors are poised to file a motion known as a recommendation for dismissal. Strauss-Kahn was arrested at JFK Airport in New York in May after Diallo told police he had attacked her when she arrived to clean his suite. The maid's credibility was undermined after the DA said she had lied about her personal history and key elements in the case. Despite the apparent holes in her testimony, Thompson and women's groups have urged the DA to press ahead with the case.
Reminder of the headlines once again this morning then. We're getting new reports of heavy fighting in Tripoli. We've seen and heard gunshots around Green Square, as we've been talking, in fact, live to our correspondents at the time there. We're also now getting reports of tanks coming out of Gaddafi's main compound in the centre of Tripoli, and heavy gunfire being heard around the compound there. Gaddafi's whereabouts remain unknown. Although 2 of his sons have been arrested, they now face prosecution by the International Criminal Court. That's the latest news from Libya. Weather forecast coming up, and then more news here on France 24. Stay with us.